Some thoughts regarding Earth's current warmer temperature and the accompanying sea level change. Temperature has warmed since the end of the last ice age. Glaciers have melted and the sea level has risen about 420 feet as a consequence. We need to accept that, and cope with it. We are currently in an interglacial, warm period, which started 20,000 years ago, and we do not know how long it will actually continue. Interglacials are not caused by human activity, but human anthropogenic CO2 contributions to the atmosphere is likely to affect the duration of the current interglacial. Interglacials happen about every 100,000 years and are a part of the natural glacial/interglacial cycle caused by variations in Earth's orbit around the Sun, its tilt, and its wobble around its axis. These cycles are referred to as Milankovitch cycles, named after the mathematician that discovered them. Generally, interglacials last about 20,000 years, glacial periods about 80,000 years. There have been about 8 such glacial/interglacial cycles during the past 1 million years. During each of the 4 previous interglacials, Earth's temperature peaked higher than today's, reaching about 5 degrees warmer than present. And sea level reached up to 26 feet higher than today. Rising sea level during an interglacial is to be expected. Again, it's not caused by human activity. Mankind's problem with all this is that modern humans have never lived through a full Milankovitch glacial/interglacial cycle, so we are unfamiliar with what to expect. Milankovitch climate changes are cycles that generally repeat themselves, much like how weather changes predictably throughout the year. But unlike our annual weather cycles, where summer and winter are approximately the same duration, Milankovitch climate cycles are unsymmetrical, with the cold glacial periods lasting about 80,000 years, and the warm interglacial periods lasting about 20,000 years. We are currently in an interglacial, and our current mild temperature has been that way for the past 10,000 years. Now modern humans, as a species, have never lived through a full 100,000-year Milankovitch cycle, especially in the northern hemisphere. So our experience with Milankovitch cycle climate change is limited to about 10% of a typical cycle. And our current understanding of that cycle is based on our having experienced this only during the warmest part of the cycle. If we equate this to what we experience during a typical year's worth of weather, then our Milankovitch experience is like what we would experience for about 73 days, 20% of a year, during the warmest part of summer. And since a Milankovitch cold cycle lasts about 80,000 years, we can anticipate the coming winter lasting about 292 days, 80% of the year. And we have no experience with living through a Milankovitch winter. Let's imagine that it's August, and the forecast is for temperatures to spike into the low 100s in the coming days. The media is bombarding us with dire warnings of high CO2 in the air, causing the hot temperatures, pushing doom and gloom. Should we be concerned? Of course. Should we panic? Definitely not. If we experience a mild fall, we know that winter will eventually return with its cold, snow, and ice. It's the same for the Milankovitch cycle. But we've never had to live through a Milankovitch winter, with its severe cold and glaciers everywhere around the northern hemisphere. Humans have been contributing CO2 to Earth's atmosphere, anthropogenic sources, from agriculture and energy production, for about the past 10,000 years. Humans have so far consumed about 30% of all known recoverable fossil fuels. Furthermore, the next Milankovitch cooling cycle should have started about 6,000 years ago. But fortunately, this has not happened yet. So we continue to benefit from a warm, mild climate. It's estimated that human anthropogenic CO2, already in the atmosphere, has likely postponed the start of the next cooling cycle by 20,000 to 50,000 years. Furthermore, it's estimated that if humans consumed all remaining, recoverable, fossil fuels at once, the next cooling cycle would be postponed for about 500,000 years. But then, the cold, snow, and glaciers will return, with devastating consequences for humanity. So what should we do? If we believe that the current high temperature has been caused by human anthropogenic contribution, then we should address that. Atmospheric CO2 averaged about 280 parts per million at the peak of the preceding 4 interglacials. Our current value is about 420. If we really believe that the higher CO2 is the cause, then we should immediately try and remove it, carbon sequestration, until levels return to 280 during the interglacials. I'll point out that, historically, temperature changes have actually led, slightly, changes in atmospheric CO2. So it's not conclusive that CO2 is the primary driver of Earth's temperature. But it's definitely a contributor. Humans have added a lot of CO2 to the atmosphere, and what has already been added will persist for a long time, hundreds to thousands of years. Removing the huge amount of CO2 already added is mission impossible from a practical point of view. Even if we could immediately remove that CO2 and drop levels back to 280, are we willing to accept the consequence? The next Milankovitch glacial cycle would likely kick in, and the northern hemisphere would once again find itself buried under massive ice sheets from all the glaciers that are certain to return. A potentially better approach might be to leave the existing 420 level out of the equation entirely. It's actually helping at this point, and just focus on trying to sequester, minimize, or eliminate any CO2 we will need to create, going forward, over the coming millennia, at least until the level returns to 280. Excess CO2 currently in the atmosphere will eventually be removed by natural process, Earth's carbon cycle. But we could probably affect what is added in the future, if that's what we really want. The question remains, are we willing to, eventually, accept the consequences of another Milankovitch glaciation? And what are we to do with the billions of humans that will be adversely affected? Just something to think about.